Welcome back to Bright and Ambitious, a podcast dedicated to helping you write, revise, and publish your next story. I'm your host, Kailey Bright.
And I'm the producer of the show, Joel Seymour. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well today.
Since we've last recorded, you've had a big change.
I have. I decided to take a break with writing Catalina for the time being. I know, I'm not enjoying what I'm writing, and I need to take time to really figure out what I want to actually say with this story rather than just throwing words at the paper, which I know is a way to write, but it's not the way I can write.
Yeah, what you were writing was really good and was really enjoyable, but not to you, which is kind of a problem when you're trying to write something good. If you don't feel good about it, it's not going to come out great. But the idea of you shelving a project for the time being, that's something new that you wouldn't have done previously, even since last time we recorded.
That's very true. I would have just plowed through.
So what was the difference? What made you change your mind? Give you this new superpower?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a superpower, but I did recently get some good advice from the person we are talking with today, Moriah Chavis. There's actually been a couple of stories in which she shelved because they weren't ready yet, and I had never heard of that before.
Yeah, it made the story better and made it something that she was more proud of. But I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of us. Who is Moriah Chavis?
She's written several books, namely Heart of the Sea and her upcoming release of The Curious Case of the Midnight Spectre. And she's also written several short stories within anthologies.
Yeah, and in the conversation y'all had, y'all talked about how to network both with other authors and with publishers, how to make sure that you're querying your book effectively when you're presenting your books to those publishers, and how shelving projects can actually lead to better books in the end. I'm really excited about this episode. Are you ready to jump into it?
I'm so ready.
All right, let's do it.
Hello, how are you doing today, Moriah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well myself. We did one event together. I think was it last year or 2 years ago by now?
I think it was 2023, I think. I do have an event already that I'm going to the Anderson Library. They're actually having me in April. And then I am going to YA by the Bay in Tampa in September.
Wow. Okay. So you are going is that the farthest you've been in terms of events?
In terms of events, yes. So I went to their first YA by the Bay, which was in October of 2023. I made a lot of writer connections too. I met two writers that I really connected well with, and we still have a group chat and send each other encouragement and stuff. And so
it actually goes really well into one of the first questions I have for you is how do you network with publishers, readers, and other authors?
I have been networking for probably over a decade. So I made the decision that I wanted to be a writer, and my mom would always take me to book events. It's like when I was 12, she started taking me to author signings so that I could not just read the books written by these people, but also meet the people who wrote them. And I started using social media as a way to connect with other authors and stuff. And I just been doing that for so long. And the publishing world seems like it's very big, but it's really not. It's really kind of a small world. I would like to say that some of these people know who I am. I doubt they do, but I know sometimes it's really easy to recognize the same people because like I said, the business is really kind of small. And it seems like, when you're in the writing world, it seems like, oh my gosh, everybody's writing a book. But then you think about it. I was thinking about the other day, I was like, I don't really actually know that many people who have written a book. And so, and the only ones I do, it's just kind of been happenstance that we met, or I met them at an event, or we just happened to meet online. And then we're like, oh wait, we live near each other, something like that. But the world is a lot smaller than it used to be too, with technology and everything. And so it's really easy to connect with other writers and stuff. Online. And some of those writers, that's the only way I know them is through their online work and through their books. But I've created good relationships, good networking opportunities. I'm always in the business of that.
I love that your mom was able to like take you to different signings because like that's not something I even considered until I was an adult. So you were able to connect with different authors, either through events or social media. When you were first starting out with both, like how did you like start and how have you like refined that process of networking?
Well, I started like as a reader only. Like I would read books. I would be part of art teams. I would join like publishers would, I joined to send them books. I had a I still use NetGalley. And I still connect with other publishers that way too. But I know everybody says if you want to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader. And so I was like, okay, then I'm just going to read as much as I can. And that's what I did was I read as much as I could. And then I gave face to the people behind the books too. So I would talk about their books online. I would talk about the things that I enjoyed. And I always brought positivity to the books that I was talking about too. And so that always helped.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that definitely helps you like reach different authors like, oh, you liked my book? And you're like, wait, you're
Yeah,
actually talking to me right now? Like, that's
I
crazy.
know. Like they don't feel like real people, but they are. They're real people. So
Yeah. And then once you like became one, like, did that change or were you more just like, no, I'm already here. I'm comfortable.
no, I still don't feel like I'm comfortable. I don't think in this space.
That's so
I
fair.
know I've
That's
written a book, but sometimes it's kind of like this out of body experience that I've written a book because the Heart of the Sea was like seventh book that I wrote.
oh wow.
And so and then I've been in the querying trenches because I'm looking for an agent still, and
Hmm.
I've been in the querying trenches for a decade, and so which is a long time to be in the trenches. But and I don't have a happy story to tell you. I'm still in there, so and I
You
know
are so
that's hard for
fine.
some people to hear is like, but I know like Stephanie Garber was in the querying trenches for like 7 to 9 years before they picked up Caraval. And so, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you've been here so long, because publishing is ever changing. It's constantly they're recycling new ideas or getting rid of old ideas and putting up new ideas, and it's changing literally every day. So usually what they're kind of looking for what they want to put on the shelves in like 2026 has already been decided like last year. And so like if you try to write on trend, it's never going to work. And so just write the stories that are important to you, and hopefully they'll find a place to land eventually. But every story that I've written, even if it hasn't been published, has taught me how to write better. And so I'm learning how to write better. I'm learning how to edit better. Self-editing is really hard to learn. And the only thing that can teach you how to self-edit is editing over and over again. And editing for other people too, and seeing different writing styles and stuff like that. So that's another thing that I would do is I connect with writers like that, and we trade pages, we trade, manuscripts and stuff. That really helps, you know, meet other people who are also in the same place as you are.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Did you ever like participate in NaNoWriMo? Like I know their reputation is not what it used to be, but
Yeah. I've never done NaNoWriMo. I've never completed a 50. I have completed a manuscript in less than a month, but I never did it with NaNoWriMo. I have done it before. But I
mm,
have learned over time though that I am definitely a writer who is best served by taking time on her projects. Like I have this one story that I wrote after I wrote Heart of the Sea, and I wrote it and literally forgot about it for 3.5 years, and I just picked it up again, and it was really nice to see because I said the person who wrote this story is not the same person who's editing this story, which is really nice, and I'm also able to look at a story that I hated. I had no hope for this story whatsoever. It was just a document on my computer, and I can see progress, and I can see how to fix it now, and I wouldn't have been able to see how to fix it 3.5 years ago because I was so tired of it. It took me a year and a half to write it, and I was just sick of it. And so I just couldn't see the picture from now, but now I'm looking at it, and I have one of my writer friends reading it. She's also reading it kind of as I edit, do a round of edits on this one, and she's like loving it. I'm like, if you had told me this 3.5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you because I'd been like, no.
yeah.
And then she gave me some books or some like things that remind her of, and they're more applicable to like today than it was 3.5 years ago. Like I said, trends are always coming and going. And so you know, some stories aren't ready for now. And so that's another thing that I have found. I need to give myself time and being more easy on myself when it comes to giving myself time, because I am not somebody who fast drafts very well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I pants my novels a lot of the time, but like the novel that I am kind of querying right now, it took me 3 years to get to the version that it is now. And it started as just an idea on a piece of paper. And so, you know, but it took a lot of time. It used to be 130,000 words. Now it's only 84,000. And
Wow.
I learned how to self-edit really well with that novel.
That's really, really cool. Like, yeah, things definitely take time. Something I like want to like kind of return to is how you were saying like your story isn't a happy one, but I feel like that is very realistic. And you mentioned
Mhm.
Stephanie Garber, like myself, like I'm an independently self-published author because like I gave up querying. I was just like, this is something I can do on my own, so I'll just do it that way. Um, so I think that's really, really cool that you're still like, you know, you still know what you want. And so you're still going after it. And you know that like it's not in your timing because I know you're a woman of God. So like it's in
Mhm.
God's timing. I am curious. The book that you're mentioning, is this The Curious Case of the Midnight Spectre or is this something different?
So that one I actually wrote as a short story, and I was in a it was in a collection for it with a small press because they do a lot of anthologies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't even query the novel. I just pitched this idea to the small press, and I was like, "Would you be interested in a series of novellas with that character?" Just because I enjoyed writing her story, I said, and I have some ideas for how to like strengthen it and how to make it longer. And so they were interested, and so I wrote 4 novellas, and then they're like, "We like them, but we think that this would be set better suited as an entire novel, just because you have so much going on." And
Mm-hmm.
so it was really fun to learn how to learn how to write a mystery. And so this one I actually finished writing it. I'm doing my edits for my publisher right now, but I finished writing it into the draft that I sent out to like people to endorse and stuff. I finished that sometime around August. And it was a very clean draft because it had to be. And
Right. Yeah.
so it was, but it was completely different than anything I've ever written, because I wrote it kind of on a deadline. My grandmother passed away in the writing of it. And so I was
Oh,
actually
wow.
supposed to have finished it way sooner than I did. And I told my publisher, and they're like, "No, you need to take time." And I was like, "See, this is when I needed time." And then I basically wrote the book in 2 months, which was really fast. And so but it was so much cleaner because I did it just a different way. Like I outlined it. I had to set up the clues because it is a mystery. It was a murder mystery, so I had to set up the clues. I had to set up how things happen, how they unfold. I changed the climax from what it used to be to something completely different. But it was fun to write, and the story was a really good escape when I needed one, and so I really liked it.
So, about like your publishing process, you are someone very unique where you represent yourself. Like, I know you were mentioning that you were, you know, still looking for literary agents, and I'm very curious to find out like how, you know, like how you've been progressing like in your 10-year journey. Um, but because you represent yourself often and you've been published by mostly like Quill and Flame and 20 Hills Publishing, I was wondering if you could explain the querying process when you do that.
So my querying process was 20 Hills was different just because I had already worked with them. And so that one was a little different. And so that was kind of like this is a one-off where I'm just like mentioning to the person who owns a publishing house, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" And she was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so, but in terms of Cool and Flame, I did it was kind of like my last Hail Mary of Heart of the Sea before I shelved it, because
Oh, wow.
I had shelved 6 other novels before then, because I'm not somebody who like had the same novel and has reworked it like 10 times until it's like worked on it for 10 years. I've written other novels. I've done different things just because that's the way that I write. Like I'll write it and then I'll be like, "Okay, this is as good as I can get it right now, so let's move on to the next thing." Which is why I said I need to give myself time, because I had that one story that I'm like really loving editing right now. But also I'm reading it after 3.5 years, so I don't remember a lot of it. And so reading it, I'm able to see it from a view this is not really technically my work, even though it is my work.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but when I went with the querying process, just finding agents on Query Shark, or that used to be one way, but
I've never heard of Query Shark. That's why it cut me off guard for a moment.
Yeah, there's Query Shark is used to be something that people would use, and then now there's oh my gosh, what is it called? The one that I use all the time, Query Tracker, querytracker.net. I am somebody who like I know the ages I've queried, but I don't have like an Excel spreadsheet, but I do have a very organized query tracker. And so I like how it's gotten better to query tracker. So now that you can save drafts of your query and when you send it and everything, and it also keeps up with who you queried and everything like that. And I found it is a really great resource for only $25 a year.
That's very nice.
And so it's been a really great resource. And then I learned a lot about querying because my mom took me to all those author events. The authors would talk about how they got published. They would talk about instances, and you really learn a lot of the time that most books that get published are just luck. Like, well, it's a lot of people working their butts off, but also it matters in that moment. And that's why I think people need to give more credit to time, because sometimes timing is the only thing that matters. And so that's why I don't feel bad about shelving books anymore. I'm trying to tell myself, well, if you are really proud of this book, it doesn't have to have a home yet, or it doesn't have to have an audience for it yet, because it might not be the time for it to have an audience. And so that's what I'm working on now, is trying to get a backlog and just write as many stories as I can, so that when it's time for those stories, then I can put them out in the world, and in the shape that I want them to be. And so that's kind of how it works. I hope that answers the question.
It does. And I think that's really, really cool. Like I've never, like I like waved my hand a little bit because I'm definitely the person who has like worked on one story for like 6+ years. That's like my entire trilogy was something I started in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely was not a great writer at 16, but I was an eager one.
Yeah.
So like, I just think it's like cool. Like I've never considered writing, like completing stories, but then shelving them, not necessarily like because you want to, but because you're like, it's not its time yet. So that's really, really fascinating. I've never considered that angle before.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had to. It's a new concept to me, because the story that I have wrote that I had been querying, it used to be a different word count, and it just was a different story. But it's a very personal story for me, and so I know that however it eventually comes out in the world, it's gonna be an important way for it to come out. I hope it finds a home one day, but I also I'm very selective with who I let read it, and because I do want to be trad published, that's why I felt that it was probably best to shelve it, because I do think I think this story is a little bit riskier, and I don't think like, especially because it does have a faith thread through it. It's not Christian fiction, but it has a faith thread in it, and it is so hard to find Christian fiction, especially that is more gritty and like down, like very, it shows the negativity of like, human actions and everything like that.
Yeah.
If you look at it from a religious standpoint, that just shows, the sin of humans and how the sinful nature and everything. And it's just hard to find grittier stuff like that in Christian fiction, because I don't think Christian fiction is ready for it. And I don't think that regular traditional publishing is sure what to do with it.
Going back to what you were mentioning about how like you are like, I want to be a traditional published author. So like, what made you decide to go the trad route over self-publishing? And would you ever consider any alternatives?
I always went to book signings for traditionally, like my mom would always take me to these book signings. And they were mostly traditionally published authors. I think self-publishing has changed its face a lot in the past decade too. Like, I don't think it looks the same as it used to look. Because, it used to be, everybody was like, well, if it's self-published, it's probably not that good. But nowadays that's not the case at all. It's usually self-published because it was too risky for a trad world, because that's usually what it is. Like I have a friend who's written a trilogy, Amanda Aller, her trilogy, the final book comes out this year, and her trilogy has a slow burn, and that's not popular in trad world at all. Slow burn is not popular, just because they kind of like want the action to happen fast and happen now. Right. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's certain books that work well that way, but there's certain books that the slow burn is kind of the whole point. Yeah. And then when they're actually like really good, you're like, oh, okay, because now we're like in book 8, the couple still hasn't kissed yet, and so we don't know what's going to happen. But I think the trad world and self-publishing world are just they're different now than they used to be. But I've always wanted to be traditionally published, I think, because that's kind of what I was introduced to first, and so that's like the method that I knew, and so that's kind of the one that I've stuck with, and like that's the one that I've gone through because I'm used to it. I know how it works. um I'm familiar with how it functions and how it's done, and so I'm familiar with it, and self-publishing is just out of my wheelhouse.
That's
Like,
fair.
that self-publishing is a completely different ball game, and I'm just used to playing the game that I know. And so, but some of the best books I've read have been self-published. And so it depends on the book and it depends on the person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so interesting because, like, my wheelhouse is definitely self publishing. I think it's just because I started with a hybrid publisher,
Mhm.
and they like that process that they gave me for my first book, I was able to apply to my second and third very well. And so that's interesting. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about the traditional publishing process? Because I it is not my wheelhouse at all.
The traditional publishing basically is you write a book, you get it the best it can be. The idea is that you don't have to pay for edits because that's the point of the traditional publishing is that they pay for the edits for you and stuff. But usually nowadays people are getting their stuff edited before they enter the querying world. And so you query agents and you're like pitching your book to them. A lot of the time the agents ask for a query letter, which is basically like a cover letter if you were giving your book a job. And
Hmm.
then a sample of the writing, either 5 to 10 pages. Some agents ask for the first 50 pages, some agents ask for the first 3 chapters. It kind of just depends. And then you have to get their attention in about 9 seconds, or you won't have it at all. And so it's a hard game to play when you're querying, and all they're seeing is your email. I've done like in-person pitching, and I really like in-person pitching. Because I just feel like it allows the agent to see the author behind it, and it allows the author to see the agent behind the book too. Because really, at the end of the day, with traditional publishing, is you're trying to convince at least one person that the book that you have written is going to be their next favorite book, because they have to be that invested in it to be like believe that it can sell to the market. And then that goes to the same. Once you get an agent, that doesn't mean your book's going to be published, because then you have to find a publisher. And editors like certain stories. Sometimes they are asking for certain stories. Sometimes that's not something that they want right now, or sometimes they've already gotten something they just like it, and so they don't really need it anymore. And so it is trying to convince. It's like I said, it's a lot of luck. It's a lot of
Right.
convincing people that your book is the best book ever, and you have to believe in your story too. And I think sometimes that's why querying is really hard, because you have such an emotional connection to the book. Um, and so querying, you definitely have to have a tough skin, and you have to get used to rejection, because rejection is going to happen more often than success, which is not a
Yeah.
bad thing, because it teaches you some valuable lessons. But it is hard. It is a hard game to play. And so that's why I did go with the small publisher for Heart of the Sea and then my mystery novel. And so that even opened up just a different side of publishing as my own representative, which is another reason that I kind of want an agent, just because my book is so personal to me. I feel like it'd be really good to have a mediator.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of what an agent gives you. And I have friends that are agents and stuff, and I've heard horror stories and good stories and all kinds of things. So it's just a different market, a different job.
Yeah. I appreciate you telling me that because, like, the people that I'm trying to reach with this podcast in particular, like they everyone definitely knows the big traditional publishing companies like HarperCollins and Simon and Schuster and Penguin Random House and stuff like that. But it is something that, like, is daunting, and, like, as you mentioned, like, it is something that you have to invest a lot of your time and energy in. And as much as I think, relatively comfortable with rejection, knowing that that's going to be like what is going to face me constantly, is definitely something that is frightening. I don't know how you handle that. Every now and then I sometimes see you post on Instagram and whatnot about, like, just being open and honest about how you're doing, while you're trying to query.
Yeah, I had a lot of hope for the story that I queried, and it was crushed real fast. And so I think it's impossible for that not to be how it happens, because even if you do write a story that ends up getting you an agent, there's going to be people who tell you that story's terrible, or
Right.
it's not good. And so I think really querying prepares you for when your book is out in the world, because no matter how much money a publisher can throw at you for this book, there's going to be somebody who hates it.
Yeah.
And so because people have their opinions and they love to share them on Goodreads. And so, you kind of have to, if you're not good with rejection in the querying trenches, then you're not going to be really, really, really good with it when your book's out actually on a shelf. And so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that like sometimes the funniest reviews are the ones that are most liked as well on Goodreads, which like isn't a bad thing. It just reminds me of Letterboxd.
People love to hate something together. People love to
Yes.
collectively hate something. That is what I've definitely learned in adulthood is people love to band together to hate something. There's something not, they're just, it's a completely different, like, people band together for things they love, but people who band together over mutual hatred, it's something.
It
So,
festers.
yeah, it is something.
Because in terms of your writing, something that I've noticed is that you like write a mix of standalone novels, and it seems like you've written a lot more than I realized since like they're not out in the world. But I've also seen that you write short stories, particularly like for anthologies.
Yeah, so I kind of told myself in 2021, the end of 2021, I was like, I don't care what it is, I'm going to get something published, and I told myself that. And so then I got my first flash fiction, the only flash fiction that I have successfully written since then, because flash fiction is not my forte. There are people who are really good with flash fiction, and I am not one of them. But flash fiction, I got my first piece published in January 2022, and that was really just telling me that there was other ways to have my stories out there, to have my words out there. And I really needed another thing that, writers really like, or agents really like too, is that you have a background to match, the story that you're pitching it to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, to say that I've been published in many anthologies, or to say that my short stories have been on websites and stuff like that, like it's not only teaching me how to write better or how to write differently, especially because short stories are so different than writing novels. But it's also showing people that, I'm doing this, and I'm trying to I'm continuing to do it. I'm continuing to put forth an effort to get my writing out in the world and things like that. And so that's really important too, is to have, your resume kind of with short stories and so forth.
Yeah, I imagine when people like type in your name on Google, like they're just gonna get like a plethora of results, and it's all gonna be about like either like your social media about writing or like your actual writing itself, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. So that's really, really cool. I was curious because like for me, I definitely tend to write longer. That's just like I'm assuming that's how most people naturally write, and then they have to edit down. So I was wondering, how do you decide when a story is going to be like 60,000+ words versus 1,000 to 5,000 for short stories?
For my mystery novel, my first draft was only 50K, and it was bare bones. Like, this is bare bones. The original ending is not there. The original ending of the short story is not there, nor is the original ending of the first draft in it either. And
All
so,
right, yeah.
so then it was going back and finding places where I needed to strengthen the story. And so that one was where I definitely was an underwriter. Now, with my other story that I had been querying for the past year, I was an overwriter. It was originally, I had to take out characters because I had this whole other side quest. So it doesn't need this cozy like elf learning medicine in it. So she's got to go. And so I took out like 50K that ended up taking out a lot of the beginning, because the beginning was slow. It was just going too slow. The pacing was off. And then also taking out characters. And so by the time I finished wheedling it down, it was only 84 when it originally had been over 130,000. And so that one started as a short story idea too. I sent it to one of my critique partners, and I was like, I think I'm going to enter this in this anthology. She says, no, you're not. She's like, that is way too much of a story to be a short story. Like, you're going to start writing it, and it's going to be really long. And she was right. I started writing it. It was really long. Originally in my head, I had said, okay, I think this story will be 75K. And then I got all the way to 130, and I was like, what is up with this? But now that it's at 84,000, I realized that, yeah, I was kind of right. It was going to be anywhere from 70 to 85K. And that was really a good place for it to be. And so that's where I feel like the story is at now. And so it's just a little document on my computer sitting there. That's okay.
That is A-okay. It's somewhere. It's written. It exists.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. That's really, really cool. So in regards to like when you send out your stories to your friends and whatnot for like review, when do you kind of decide to do that? Like when the book is done, when like you have the idea down, or like somewhere in between?
So when I finished the first draft, and I I don't know if it's called alpha reading because I really haven't. I don't call it that. I just call it, hey, you want to read this for
Got
me
you, got
and
you.
tell me if you
Yeah.
like it, or tell me some of your ideas. Like I have a beta reader that I have, and she's awesome. She's one of the people who's like she, and then another critique partner I have who actually lives in Japan. She and her are reading the story right now, as I'm putting it in the document. So I am calling this draft two is what I've called it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really count my drafts. I'm not really good at that because I'll just change it and then I'll change something completely different. And then I have this whole document with all these deleted scenes in it. And so, I guess I have like when I feel like it's at a point where I need someone else to tell me how to fix it, then because like at a certain point you can see what's wrong with it. But also your story will get somewhere where you're like, no, I just I can't see how it needs fixing. And because you are so close to it, and that's okay. It's just you do need a person who's not emotionally invested as much as you are. And so, but I mean, when I had Heart of the Sea, it used to have the guy knew a crew was 12 people, and so there were 12 people that were on this ship with Narissa. And I had an editor actually for a publishing house tell me that there was too many characters, and so then I cut the characters down to like 6. And that was the first instance where I had to like kill main characters, like get rid of them. And I got rid of one of
Wow.
my favorite characters in the book. And I kind of he just turned into somebody. His dialogue I just put into Duncan's actually, which is one of the characters in my book.
Yeah.
And but that was the first time I had to kill my darlings. And after that, I don't really have a problem doing it anymore because I know usually when someone's telling me the character's just not working, it means they just need to go just because they're not their storyline isn't important. Like you can save their storyline on your computer, but it's just not important. And so that's a lesson in self editing, and so I've gotten better at learning that too.
Yeah. Once you start killing, it's easy to kill again. But I just say that jokingly. Yeah, killing your darlings is definitely like a hard but kind of rewarding lesson. I feel like you could definitely like reuse those characters potentially in other stories, or at least like their archetypes or like different personality traits, maybe even their descriptions. You mentioned that you will put like deleted scenes in a completely other document. So do you also have like a forgotten files? Like, is that how you store things that you are removing, just so like they're not completely deleted from the world?
Yeah, sometimes I do just delete. So, I mean, that's
Okay.
okay. But like, when I deleted that character from my story that was so long, I loved that character and I didn't want her to not like exist in the in writing ever again. And so I literally just put all her chapters into like something and deleted her. And it's kind of also like when I deleted that character, for instance, it was you don't have to let the reader see everything that's going on. Like not everything is not everything is important. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I'm actually doing the line edits now, and I have like this random paragraph that talks about how they used to put arsenic and like all the paint in Victorian England. And my editor was like, "We don't need this.
Yeah,
Like,
like why is
delete
this
it.
important?
Like,
Yeah.
why is this here?" And so I just deleted it. I was like, "Well, no, guess they don't need to know. I can just tell them that's what I learned, but nobody cares." And so I did my research, but it's fine. It doesn't need to be in there anymore. Because I don't know. It's just sometimes things just don't need like the novel needs to be snappy and ready, and sometimes you have to delete things that you like or little factoids that you think are interesting. Um, and some things work and some things don't. So
Got you. Yeah, I imagine it would most likely stay if, like, for some reason the fumes made someone sick
I know.
in the story, that sort of thing. That's really good information. I always like to end with some fun random questions. So, are you ready for some fun random questions?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one is, what is your favorite drink to have next to you while you write?
I actually don't drink anything besides water. So I usually have
Wow.
water.
Oh my goodness, not even some lemon? like in your
No,
water?
I do like Spindrift. I have one
Okay.
right here with me. I do love Spindrift. That is my bougie water that I spend my money on. It's on sale at Target right now, so I got 5 cases. But
As you
that's
should.
yes, as you should. Spindrift is amazing, and but yeah, just Spindrift, and that's the only drink that I drink besides just water from filtered water.
Wow. I am impressed by you. I have like 3 drinks hidden on this table right now. I love, I don't know why, I love drinks. So that is really, really cool.
In middle school, I told myself I didn't want to drink anything. I didn't want to drink soda anymore, and so I just went cold turkey, and
And you're just like, never again.
never again.
You know what? Middle school you was right. You know, you didn't need to.
I know. And if I ever like drink soda, just like if I take a swig of whatever my husband's drinking, it tastes so artificial. Like I was eating something the other day and it was like chips that I hadn't had in a while. And my husband and I, we eat pretty clean and we're not perfect by any means. I don't think anybody is, but like I ate them and I was like, I cannot finish this bag. Like, oh my goodness, I can taste the red 40 in it. Like, like I was like, I cannot finish this.
That's me with milk. Like I got so used to almond milk that when I tried 2% for the first time, I thought my friend was pranking me. Like I thought she like just dumped sugar into the cup. Yeah. And I was
milk is weird. Like whole milk is really rich.
Yeah, I was shocked at the difference. That's so fair.
Yeah.
So the second question I have, what was the last book you gave 5 stars?
I just finished An Overdue Match by Sarah. I'm looking at it over there. Monzon. It just came out with Bethany House. And it is a contemporary romance about a girl with alopecia, who doesn't believe that she's the main character in anybody's romance. And then it's about the boy who she falls in love with. And it was really good. And the author's mother had alopecia, so it was kind of dedicated to her too.
That's super cute. I'm loving the cover. Huge fan.
Yeah, the cover's adorable. I saw it and I was like, I really want to read that.
Yeah.
It's really cute. And she's a librarian, so that's fun.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm seeing it. And then finally, what is a song you've connected with your books?
This makes me sound like odd, but I actually don't listen to that much music.
Not even instrumental?
No, not really.
Wow.
I like to write in silence like a crazy person.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That I feel like I'm crazy because I can listen to like lyrical music while I'm writing, and I know a lot of people usually can't. But like no music at all.
Now there'll be songs every now and then that I'll hear them. I'm like, yeah, that reminds me of my main character.
Mm-hmm.
I did have like a folder for one of them. I like the Wicked soundtrack. I mean, that's pretty solid.
It's classic, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for the hero's journey.
There was a lot of, I like the epic.
Yes.
Just a Man. Like that song is amazing. And that kind of reminds me of one of my main characters, who's just a character on my laptop right now. It reminds me of him.
Is there anything you'd like to tell the listeners? Because I know that you have a lot of projects either coming out soon or already on pre-order.
Yeah, so you can pre-order the ebook of The Curious Case of the Midnight Inspector. So you can order the ebook, and you can order my YA romantasy, my pirate fantasy, in all formats. It's available as an audiobook, ebook, hardback, paperback. The audiobook was what I was really excited about, because I love audiobooks. I'm an audiobook aficionado, and so I really love them. And then I have my short story, Thorns of Winter, if you just wanted to see something that's a little shorter by me, just to get a taste of my writing. And so that one's a Beauty and the Beast retelling.
I was already interested in it, and how dare you tell me it was
It's a gender swapped one. So
stop. This is gonna be so good. Why did I not get it when it was 99 cents?
The story's still it's still 99 cents.
Oh,
it's still 99 cents. My publisher is just a 99-cent short story. So
okay, yeah. I'm definitely getting that today then. Wow, you're incredible. Well, I appreciate you chatting with me, taking time out of your day to talk with another author as well as some aspiring readers, or aspiring authors, I should say.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.